Number 10. She-Hulk. In Ultimates, Jennifer Walters is not She-Hulk, Betty Ross is. She ended up stealing the formula that would cause her transformation from Walters, who here is a doctor and scientist instead. Betty needed the formula to try and save Bruce Banner, the Hulk, who Nick Fury had sent Wolverine to assassinate. Betty had tried everything else she could think of to interfere with Fury's plans, and this was the only option really left to her. Stealing the formula, she was pursued, but injected it in time, becoming the Jade Giantess She-Hulk. The serum made it so that rage was not a part of the transformation, meaning that Betty got to keep her wits and maintain a sense of level-headedness while transformed. She would end up pursuing the Hulk and reconnect with him, but the two would ultimately end up fighting one another. Afterwards, She-Hulk found herself defeated by Wolverine and was later taken in by S.H.I.E.L.D., only apprehended likely because Wolverine made her wear a collar that basically prevented her from transforming. Number 9. Miles Morales. One of my favorite characters to come from 1610, we have Spider-Man, aka Miles Morales. Miles was so powerful in terms of his popularity that he was one of the few characters to survive the destruction of Earth 1610. He ended up moving over to Earth 616, given a place there once the world was reconstructed by Molecule Man and Reed Richards in the Fantastic Four. Molecule Man actually ended up saving Miles because he ended up giving him a burger when he was hungry. Gotta love those pocket burgers. In a way, it's always been Miles' quirkiness and kindness that has remained one of his greatest strengths. But aside from that, he's also one of the most powerful Spider-Men, or spider-folk, around. He not only has the proportional strength of a spider, making him super strong, but can also camouflage his body to match his surroundings, rendering him pretty much invisible to the untrained eye, and comes with his Venom Blast, which allows him to deal devastating electrical shocks to his opponents. Now, every time I say Venom Blast, I just think of the Jessica Drew Spider-Woman cartoon from the 70s. Oh my goodness, Venom Blast. Number 8. Invisible Woman. Sue would end up in the ultimate reality married to Ben Grimm, but initially would fall for Reed, just like in the Earth 616 reality. She would also stay loyal to him for quite some time, despite the fact that, like on Earth 616, he tended to become obsessed with science to the point of, well, kind of ignoring her. Sue herself was also a genius and ended up with 4 doctorates in biochemical science before she entered her 20s. She possesses an IQ of 170, not far off from Tony Stark in this reality. Her powers allow her to turn invisible, generate force fields and shields. She can use these shields to protect defensively or to destroy and attack offensively. Many times, Sue has used her abilities to save her teammates' lives. Number 7. Black Bolt. Black Bolt in the Ultimate Universe has power that is expected to be at the same level as his Earth 616 counterpart, which would mean that, well, he's pretty strong. While Black Bolt is super powerful, I mostly put him on this list because, well, I like his costume better in the Ultimate Universe, and I wanted to talk about that. I know that doesn't make him more powerful having a cooler outfit, but he still is likely one of the most powerful heroes in all of the Ultimate Universe, just like he is one of the most powerful in the main continuity besides. But also, that costume though. Honestly, overall, I think many of the Inhumans look way more intimidating and interesting in the Ultimate Universe. And sure, to some, the Inhumans might not seem like heroes in this universe because they don't really fight for humanity, but their own heroes and King Black Bolt do fight for them as a people. So to his own people, to the Inhumans, Black Bolt is definitely still a hero. Number 6. Wolverine. Wolverine is similar to his Earth 616 counterpart, but with a bit of a different history and family life. He actually has a son in this reality who's very different from his other children from Earth 616, who we're used to seeing. Jimmy Hudson is Wolverine's son, and we later learned that he was raised by a pal of Logan's who he'd made during his service in Iraq. James Hudson took in the child and changed his name legally from Howlett to Hudson. Jimmy grew up not knowing about his true parents and his true origins until he got into a car accident which caused his mutant powers to manifest. He also has a healing factor and claws like his dad. In the Ultimate Universe, Wolverine's healing abilities are thought of as being so intense that many believe that his mutant power may not actually be healing, but instead are survival and adaptability based, which tells you just how OP those powers can be at times. Number 5. President Captain America. Not only was Captain America a hero in the Ultimate Universe, but he was also the President of the United States for a time. So he had political powers as well as superpowers. Pretty impressive. Steve's story is a little different here. Instead of Bucky going MIA, he survived while Steve was lost for a time, frozen in ice. Bucky and Steve's fiancé bonded over his loss, which only brought them closer together, and they ended up happily married. When Steve returned, it was later revealed that his fiancé had his child while he was gone, who had grown up to become the Red Skull. Le gasp! Steve's powers are similar to his main continuity counterpart. He is a super soldier and as such has superhuman speed, strength, durability, reflexes, and has somewhat enhanced healing as well as dramatically slowed aging. Just like on our 616, he is also known for being a skilled and gifted leader and brilliant tactician. Number 4. Kitty Pryde. In the Ultimate Universe, Kitty Pryde would end up as the leader of the mutants of Utopia. In this reality, she still has her powers to walk on air and water and never needed to hold her breath in order to phase. On her first mission out with the X-Men, Kitty snuck aboard their jet. In fact, her mother had made Professor Xavier promise not to allow her daughter to get involved with any X-Men missions or any Danger Room training. On this mission that she was not supposed to be on, Kitty was the one to save the day when Wolverine and Cyclops were about to be attacked by a supercomputer. Kitty phased through the computer, rendering it useless. Here, Kitty took up the codenames Shadowcat and later on Shroud. I love the codename Shroud for her, and would even go on to fight Galactus and win! You know you're powerful if you can fight Galactus and survive that. Number 3. Thor. In this reality, we first weren't sure if Thor was actually Thor or just a man suffering from severe delusions. Thorleif Goleman, it turned out, was simply the name that Thor had been given on Midgard when he was banished after the death of his father and the fall of Asgard. In the end, Thor would remember who he was and would take a suit and hammer that were made to reflect his traditional Norse god power set, promising to use the suit and its abilities to protect Midgard. Thor would help to defeat the Hulk and, in his fight against the X-Men, best Storm as well. Eventually, he would get his own powers back, but either with his suit powers or his natural powers, he's pretty intimidating. He would also end up joining the Ultimates and befriending Captain America and Iron Man. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to visit some more alternate universes or just go back more to the Ultimates, let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 2. Iron Man. Iron Man has a bit of a twist to his origin in the Ultimate Universe. He was actually born as a twin to the Starks and has a twin brother named Gregory. Tony exhibited a brilliant mind and intellect from a young age, and his father, Howard, hoped that he would one day take over the company. But initially, Tony was kind of resistant, preferring to create his own company instead, which he built from the ground up with his then girlfriend, Josie Gardner. Eventually, though, his dad would persuade him to join the family business, prompting him and Josie to split after he left their company. Later on, he'd get lost in his own work after Josie died during a plane crash, which it turns out was the work of Mandarin International, an enemy of Stark Industries. Oh no. Tony is even more powerful in this reality, having his brain affected by exposure to radiation from an infinity gem. This granted him the ability to communicate and control technology with his mind. He can kind of do that in 616, I think, but I don't know if it's to this extent. Number 1. Captain Marvel. Yep, in the reality of the Ultimates, Rick Jones is one of the most powerful heroes around. I know, it sounds crazy, but this is because here he isn't just a friend to many heroes and like BFF of the Hulk. Instead, he is a hero in his own right. He was granted powers by the Watcher, given powers strong enough to enable him to save the planet. He would go on to take up the alias Nova and eventually Captain Marvel, but he's also been referred to before as the Sentry, just to give you an idea of what level of power we're dealing with here. He can emit energy blasts strong enough to harm Galactus, even after he combined with Galactus. And he can teleport across the universe or galaxies, or simply teleport others such a great distance if he wishes. He can also teleport to other dimensions and possesses cosmic awareness, which can be focused or guided by the Watcher. Number 10. Captain Namor. In this reality, Namor is the captain of the submarine vessel known as Dorma, which is usually disguised as a fishing trawler. He is the ally to Tony Stark's Iron Man in this reality and helps the adventurer Tony Stark during his quest to find the hidden underwater city of Atlantis. Namor ends up losing his ship during this adventure and later saves Tony Stark's life because of this, claiming that Stark owes him a ship, which, yeah, is fair and also a good reason to save his life. Captain Namor doesn't have any superpowers to speak of, but still keeps his pointed ears in this reality, and this is because Namor actually sliced his own ears and the ears of his crew to help him identify them, making their ears resemble shark fins. I mean, ouch, but hey, it does look cool. Number 9. Angel. Thomas Holloway was the hero known as Angel. He and his twin brother Robert grew up at Welfare Pen, where their father was a prison guard. As such, he learned much from the inmates at Welfare Pen about the criminal underworld as he grew up. After the corrupt system resulted in the death of their teacher, Sean Cassidy, and later their father, who took his own life, Thomas was taken in by a well-off family who raised him. He and his brother Robert worked together, aiming to make the world a better place, becoming both investigators and vigilantes. Thomas Holloway was given the nickname Angel when he was a kid for saving one of the prisoners at Welfare Pen from the electric chair. He would later adopt this name as his superhero mantle. Angel didn't actually possess any superpowers per se, but he was a skilled acrobat, fighter, and detective. And in the Noirverse, that's all you really need here. And friends, before we move on to the next spot, just a quick reminder to click that like if you want to hear about maybe more from the Noirverse, or maybe just more from alternate realities in general. Ooh, alternate realities. Number 8. Wolverine. Wolverine in the Noirverse is still pretty powerful, but is not a mutant with powers in this continuity. Still, he does fight with his signature trademark weapons, his claws. Except that the claws we see him brandish in the alternate reality of Earth 90214 are weapons and not actually his own bones. Wolverine, oddly enough, has two different backstories in Noir, and it's never really explained as to if they actually connect, are related, or rather which is considered to be the actual true one in this continuity. In one series we see him as a bootlegger who spends most of his days intoxicated, and in another he is known as a hard-boiled detective with a dark and troubled past. Either way though, he's still tough as nails and the best at whichever he does. Number 7. Mr. Castiglione, or Frank Castle as he's also known in the Noir universe. Frank Castiglione Sr. was a single parent who returned home to New York City after fighting in World War I. His wife had died from cancer, and so he was left to raise their son Frank Jr. alone. Instead of wearing his skull vest or t-shirt in this reality, this version of Frank actually has a skull tattoo on his chest. Pretty badass. He attempted to protect and train his son when their family got tied up in a gang war. Mr. Castiglione is an experienced fighter and firearms expert, similar to his 616 counterpart, but just based in the Prohibition era instead. Number 6. The Demon. Kurt Wagner here is more of a neutral figure, really, if that. But in the main continuity of Earth 616, Kurt is considered a hero and a member of the X-Men, and so for that reason we're just gonna count him here as a hero for the purpose of this list. Kurt the Demon Wagner, as he's known in this reality, claims to be the world's greatest escape artist. He ended up being hired by Weapon X, which in the reality of 90214 is tied to the German government, and was working to capture the American spy Mimic. He made his first appearance in X-Men Noir: The Mark of Cain in issue number 1. Number 5. White Widow. White Widow is Felicia Hardy. She, like her 616 counterpart, usually anyways, doesn't really have any superpowers in this universe of Earth 90214. She also becomes infatuated with Spider-Man here, but is primarily involved with various villains and mob bosses. Before all of that though, she was the lover of Benjamin Urich, and acted as his contact when it came to gathering evidence on various officials and basically looking at all the corruption that was going on in the city. She managed to gather this information through her club, the Black Cat. After Urich's death, Felicia confronted his murderer, the Chameleon, who was disguised as Jonah Jameson, Urich's employer, and shot him to death. I love how much of like a fatale she is in this. It's so cool. Number 4. Daredevil. I actually really like this alternate version of Daredevil. I like him a lot. His power is very similar to his Earth 616 counterpart, and like his main continuity version, is also blind. But what I really love about him is his backstory. He became blind after attempting to defend his father, a boxer, who was attacked in front of him and killed for not throwing a fight. Young Matt attempted to defend his father, and as a result got his head smashed into a wall, causing him to become permanently blind. Daredevil here also gets his alias from his profession as a stage performer, where he is known for his amazing stunts, hence his name. While he isn't a lawyer here, he does assist his friend Foggy Nelson, who in this reality is a detective. Everybody's a detective in the Noirverse. I love it. Number 3. Punisher. Punisher Noir, as he's known, is Frank Castiglione Jr., the son of Frank Castiglione Sr. His whole vengeance mission is actually about avenging his dad's death as opposed to his children and wife. Caught up in a gang war after refusing to pay the Schultz's protection money, Frank Sr. was attacked, and Frank Jr. decided to take up arms and get revenge for his father's death. Frank Sr. had taught his son well, preparing him for what he knew would be the war to come as a result of their choice to not pay that protection money. As such, the Punisher here is very similar to his 616 counterpart when it comes to his skills with weapons, tactics, explosives, and hand-to-hand combat. Number 2. Iron Man. Iron Man doesn't have any superpowers of his own, but instead relies on technology for his super abilities, like on Earth 616. Although I think on Earth 616 now Tony might have some actual powers attached to his body, but yeah, I think he can control tech. Tony comes armed with his own Iron Man armor here in the Noirverse. Initially, he was on a hunt for the Jade Mask, which he believed would cure his unexplained heart condition, as opposed to relying on the electrical device which kept him alive. He would be betrayed on this expedition and later team up with Captain Namor on his ship, the Dorma, to search for the lost city of Atlantis. In the reality of 90214, Tony's father, Howard, is also revealed to be the supervillain Baron Zemo. What a twist! Betrayal after betrayal for Tony here. Number 1. Spider-Man. Spider-Man in this reality does still have his powers, but is also known for being a decent investigator besides. He would go on to take on such villains as the Goblin, who in this reality is a powerful mob boss. The Goblin was also the one responsible for his Uncle Ben's death here, which is a part of his vendetta against him. It's personal, like it usually is with Goblin in most other realities for Peter besides. Spider-Man actually has the most villains probably of anyone in the Noirverse, but I guess that's because most of the Noirverse, like, he's the draw for it. It's very Spider-Man focused for a lot of the stuff we see. This version of Peter is also capable of producing organic webbing and is willing to fight with firearms. Number 10. Master Jonathan Storm. Master Jonathan Storm was a member of the Four from the Fantastic, who would become Count Otto von Doom's arch-nemesis as well as his prisoners. He and the rest of the Four from the Fantastic would eventually end up escaping from Doom's clutches and resuming their adventures. Master Jonathan Storm, like the rest of the team, had received his powers while on a sea voyage after their ship had passed through a mysterious light. This light, it turns out, was actually part of the anomaly. Jonathan, like his 616 counterpart, can engulf his body in flame. Doom had to keep him directly underneath a constant waterfall just in order to smother his powers enough to keep him contained. Number 9. Enrique. Enrique is the 1602 version of Magneto, and he is overwhelmingly powerful because he not only gets to keep the powers of Magneto from 616, but he also holds an important position with the Church as their Grand Inquisitor. In the world of Earth 311, mutants are actually believed to be the devil's work and are referred to as witch breed. It was Enrique's job to hunt them down and wipe them out, but being a witch breed himself, and his children Wanda and Petros also being witch breed as well, meant that he did his best to help these 1602 mutants, executing only those whose mutations could not be hidden and were generally more physical mutations. Anyone he felt he could help, he recruited to his own brotherhood in an attempt to protect them. While in our world, Magneto is more a villain or perhaps an anti-hero, in 1602 the Grand Inquisitor seems about as heroic as he could be given his position. So I think we can count him a hero here. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to go to more alternate worlds, please be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Sir Nicholas Fury. Sir Nicholas Fury was a soldier who attained glory on the battlefield and was noticed for his service to the country and the crown by the Queen herself. She knighted Fury and also made him the head of her own secret network or service of spies. Nicholas Fury would recruit other heroes to his cause, and while he might not have any superpowers to speak of in this reality, he is a key player in many major storylines and battles of good versus evil in the world of 1602. He would go on to work for King James after the death of Queen Elizabeth, and later go rogue when he felt that his own beliefs for how to best keep the country and its citizens safe no longer aligned with his king's. He also kind of began to question whether or not he even cared really about saving the world, which, fair enough. Number 7. King James. King James I of England was more of a villain, I suppose, in terms of the narrative, but it is implied that he is also possibly known by a heroic name back on the Earth of 616. In 1602 Witch Hunter Angela issue number 1, it appears that King James is none other than a version of James Howlett. If this is true, it could be that his persecution of the witch breed was simply something he did in response to his own origins and hatred of his own abilities and of himself. But it's also unclear if this is the same King James. King James, in terms of his larger role in the world, took over as a ruler after the assassination of Queen Elizabeth. He was the driving force behind the Inquisition that sought to purge all witch breed from the country. King James was shown in 1602 Witch Hunter Angela to have powers similar to Wolverine of Earth 616. King James, as he appeared in Marvel 1602, was known for being the ruler of not just England but also of Scotland, and was making progress towards conquering and ruling Ireland important as well. And if you're thinking, but wait a minute, King James in the 1602 reality was not very heroic. Yes, you're right, but the version of him that is kind of combined with Wolverine, Wolverine's a hero, and so by extension, that's why he's on the list. Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. Number 6, Virginia Dare. Virginia Dare is a unique character to come out of 1602, or she was intended to be unique anyways. Some have compared her powers to that of Canadian Marvel superhero Snowbird, but Neil Gaiman and Andy Kubert, who created Virginia Dare, intended for her to be an original character in the sense that she was not made to be a mirror or counterpart to any 616 superhero that already existed. Virginia Dare's powers allow her to shapeshift into any creature, including animals and even mythological beasts. She was the first child born in the Roanoke colony, which in the reality of Earth 311 never mysteriously disappeared in the 1580s. Virginia received her powers from coming into contact with the rift that brought Captain America into the 1602 reality, and she was also friends with his 311 counterpart known as Rojaz. Number 5, Captain Benjamin Grimm. Like Master Jonathan Storm, Captain Benjamin Grimm also ended up imprisoned by Count Otto von Doom. But where Jonathan was kept beneath a waterfall, Grimm was confined to a room so small he could not even sit in it. For years, he continued to thrash against the walls, and eventually, he managed to put a tiny crack in the wall of his cell. This crack would prove to be Grimm's salvation, allowing him to escape his cell and free his fellow teammates, who then were able to join up with Sir Nicholas Fury, who was also there at the time and eager to rescue his old friend Sir Richard Reed. And if you're wondering how a tiny crack did that, well, the tiny crack was obviously the beginning of everything falling apart in his cell, so yay. Benjamin, like his 616 counterpart, has a body that is incredibly strong due to his rock-like form. He was also the captain of the ship the four from the Fantastic sailed on when they got their powers, named, of course, the Fantastic. Hence why they're the four from the Fantastic. Get it? Number 4, Stephen Strange. Or Dr. Stephen Strange if you want. Stephen Strange was taken prisoner by sailors, being sold by them to a doctor from whom he learned many things both of science and of medicine. While on a mission to retrieve herbs for his master in exchange for his freedom, venturing up into the mountains, he ended up almost dying, but fortunately was saved by the members of a monastery. During his time there, he learned the mystical arts, and after recovering fully, he was able to complete his mission, returning with the herbs for the doctor in order to gain his freedom back. He would end up becoming the physician to the Queen of England, Elizabeth I, and would connect with Yuada, the Watcher, gaining knowledge that he could only speak of after his life had ended. Now, knowing that this was the only way for him to pass on the valuable knowledge that he had gained to other heroes of his world, he allowed himself to be executed. Once he had been beheaded, his wife, Clea, retrieved his head so that she could commune with her late husband in death to learn of the knowledge he had been given. It's all pretty powerful, I think. I think if you can die and then still be like a really cool hero and like help people after you die, that's pretty powerful to me. Number 3, Hulk. David Banner is the 1602 version of Bruce Banner, aka the Hulk. He would take the place of Sir Nicholas Fury in King James's court after Fury betrayed and abandoned the new king. Initially, Banner was all for eradicating the witch breed and actually believed wholeheartedly in his mission, but after being exposed to the anomaly's energy while shielding his colleague and friend Peter Parquois, he found himself transformed into the creature known as the Hulk. He and Peter had been sent to the Americas to hunt down Fury and kill him on behalf of the king, but after this transformation, David began to question his loyalties and his beliefs. He would eventually return to England to surrender, but during his execution would actually transform into the Hulk and then kill King James. So I feel like if you kill a king, you're pretty powerful as well. I mean, the Hulk is just powerful in general. I think we can all agree. Number 2, Angela the Witch Hunter. As we learn in the main continuity, Angela of Earth 616 is actually Thor's lost sister. But in Earth 311, Angela was introduced as merely a mortal witch hunter who was tasked with hunting down and eliminating witch breeds on the behalf of King James. Later on, during Secret Wars, we would come to know her as a witch hunter who instead hunted demons. At least they seem like demons to me, referred to here as Faustians. Often these were characters we knew from 616, but then twisted into something evil in the style of the 1602 reality. So, having 311 counterparts like Captain James Buchanan. Angela traveled around with her lover and her companion Sarah, working to eliminate these Faustians in order to protect communities all over England from their villainous ways. She is immensely powerful in the end, becoming sort of a combination of her own 616 self and Enchantress after defeating Amora in this reality, but also becoming cursed with her power as a result. But even if you're cursed with power, you're powerful. Number 1, Thor of the Thunders. Or just Thor, or Donal the Ancient One. Donal the Ancient One is the old member of the Templar Order who ends up forced into becoming the mortal host for the pagan god known as Thor of the Thunders. This transformation happens when Donal is forced to defend himself and those he travels with while transporting the Templar artifact disguised as a stick that is really Thor's hammer Mjolnir. Thor is obviously one of the most powerful superhero characters in Marvel Comics, and he remains so even in this alternate world belonging to the 1602 universe of Earth 311. Thor is always super powerful. Ta-da! That's what happens when you can control the weather and thunder and lightning and all sorts of cool stuff.